That also, one of the things we always talk about in transition planning is the value gap. Is it possible that you have, and this is maybe a dumb question, possible you have an owner that says, look at, the business is worth $10 million. I know I could get $10 million for it, but all I need is 7. All
Right.
I need is 6. And my kids, if I can get 6 more out of here based on all the modeling and things that we've done, can you help me to make that happen? Does that work in those circumstances?
Absolutely. The interesting part about the Popeye structure is if you think about it in our example here, you're dealing with a $10 million business and you don't have to pay $3 million of taxes, then does it really matter if the valuation is 7 million versus 10? Because it's the same amount of money, right? And so if you only need 6 or 7, that's fine. There's no need for formal valuations or any of that kind of stuff. It's the whole willing buyer, willing seller, under no compulsion to buy or sell. That determines value. And so it's easier to do that.
Got it.
The value gap discussion is critical to that whole financial planning thing, and it drives a discussion of how much, in my prior example, how much of that $2 million of annual increase you actually have to invest, because we have to be able to essentially change the withdrawal number from my theoretical thing of 20% down to something like 4 or 5, which represents a more long-term sustainable number. Right. And so how much do you already have? What is the value gap? It's the same discussion we always have once we've monetized. There's another piece here when you're dealing with family members. There is an attribution issue that you'll have to deal with, so that it helps us during the transition. But if I'm trying to make sure that the client is ultimately not an owner of the business, okay? If I've transitioned it to my children, okay, then if I have anything to do with the business at all, Section 318 is going to suck the entire value back into my estate for tax purposes. So the last redemption has to contain with it a pretty strong waiver of family attribution, and we need to go through the corporate structure and make sure that things like rental agreements for property between dad and the son and all of this other kind of stuff do not run afoul of 318, or else, particularly in the upper end of this stuff, if I take a $10 million business plus the other assets the individual has, and they start messing around with estate tax law, I could find myself in a taxable transaction, a taxable estate, particularly if, because we didn't pay attention, that whole business is going to get sucked into his estate through family attribution. So it's the nuance and the details you got to be aware of.
Okay.
Simple on paper.
Very important.